Nikita Mazepin is possibly one of the most hated drivers in motorsport history. He is disliked not only for his abysmal performances for 1 year he's competed in, but also for various personal reasons. From being the son of a prominent Russian oligarch with close ties to Vladimir Putin to the numerous controversies surrounding his behavior, it is safe to say that the 23-year-old would not be welcome back. Nonetheless, the ex-Haas driver has stated in recent interviews that he is committed to a return to Formula One. In the meantime, Mazepin didn't hesitate to drop a complete bombshell on F1 officials, making a very clear demand for the sport's management. And if that wasn't enough, the Russian also issued a serious warning to Haas, demanding $10 million from the severely underfunded outfit. Without further ado, let's look at his allegations against Haas, how he intends to return, and why he might be the first Russian to do so. Mazepin raced with the Haas team last year, led by Günther Steiner, after Uralkali, in which his father Dmitry owns a stake, became a named partner. That funding enabled the now 23-year-old to drive for them alongside Mick Schumacher, who also made his debut in 2021, and the pair were set to return to the American side this season. However, on February 24th, Russian President Vladimir Putin decided to launch a full-fledged invasion of Ukraine, displacing millions and killing thousands. The FIA acted quickly, canceling the Russian Grand Prix and prohibiting any Russian and Belarusian flags or sponsors from appearing at FIA-sanctioned events. They also mandated that racers and entrants from Russia and Belarus compete under a neutral flag, and they prepared a document for those competitors to sign. It essentially stated that anyone signing was opposed to Russia's violence and agreed to the terms of their participation in motorsports. Mazepin agreed to sign the document, but oligarch sanctions made Uralkali's relationship with Haas nearly impossible to maintain. As a result of Dmitry's company's split with Haas, Nikita lost his seat and he was replaced by the returning Kevin Magnussen. Since then, the young Russian has competed in the Silkway Rally in his home country, but he has stated that he wants to return to Formula One. Mazepin has now stated that he is neither in favor nor opposed to Russia's actions, which have been accused of numerous war crimes. I was one of the first to receive this document back in March, but I would really like the athletes to have the opportunity to remain neutral, he told RIA Novosti, a Russian state-owned news agency. Co-rally driver Konstantin Ziltsov gave up his Russian license and took on an Israel one in order to compete in the Dakar Rally, as did Ferrari reserve driver Robert Schwartzman to continue his duties with the Italian side. However, Mazepin denied that he would take such action, perhaps indicating his position on the war. You can't blame anyone for that. We are athletes and everyone has their own choice. Ziltsov is not the only one. Schwartzman did the same, but it is a matter of personal considerations. Whether you want to give up your country for the sake of sport, everyone can choose for himself, but I will not do this. Sergei Karyakin, a Russian chess grandmaster who formerly represented Ukraine, has been barred from participating in the tour. Karyakin has used his social media accounts to advocate for Putin in the military conflict in Ukraine. In one of his tweets, he was wearing boxing gloves and wrote, "Celebrating the first day of spring, a Russian spring." The caption, as well as the majority of his tweets since the start of Russia's military campaign, have been condemned by the chess community. In other tweets, Karyakin has referred to a segment of Ukrainians as Nazis, blamed the West, particularly the United States of America, for igniting the Ukrainian war, and stated that Russian money was keeping chess alive. But why are we telling you this? Well, here's what Mazepin had to say about it. Karyakin's words did not surprise me. I know Sergei well. I know his position and I respect him. So yeah, if you needed another reason to hate Mazepin, you're welcome. Earlier in the year, Mazepin indicated that he is suing the Haas team for what he calls salary arrears owed to him for the 2022 season. Mazepin told Russian media outlet RBC that his legal action would be between him and Haas and would be independent of the team's former title sponsor Uralkali. After reports that Uralkali was seeking reimbursement for sponsorship funds it had paid Haas in advance of the 2022 season, he described the legal case against Haas as his personal matter and stressed that any trial would take place specifically between him and the team. Mazepin also suggested that, based on his information, Russian Grand Prix promoter Razgonki was paid by F1 to cancel its race, setting an example of etiquette Haas could have followed. He later provided an update on the lawsuit, telling Russian media that he had filed with Swiss courts and that their notice had been approved. "We filed a lawsuit, which is important. The notice was accepted. At the moment, our opponent, the Haas team, has 30 days to respond to the notice from the court. We will find out soon when and where exactly in Switzerland the hearings will take place. Given that the Haas team has recently lost a major title sponsor in Uralkali, the lawsuit could prove difficult. However, Günther Steiner denied that notion, stating that there is nothing to worry about in the terms of the team's financial future. Nevertheless, the partnership with Uralkali turned out to be another nightmare for Haas after their relationship with Rich Energy ended in 2019. That year, William Story signed a contract to invest money in Gene Haas's team, but his expectations of the American team were not met, as they finished 9th in the constructor standings. Story was involved in a legal battle with White Bikes after his brand was accused of stealing their logo, and it was discovered that none of the pledged funds had been paid into Haas's accounts by Rich Energy, so the partnership ended just after the halfway point of the year. That came after Rich Energy bizarrely and falsely tweeted that they had terminated the agreement, so Haas will undoubtedly be cautious before entering into another partnership. It is a good thing, then, that they do not really need to jump into anything right now, at least according to Steiner. When asked by media whether or not a new sponsor will be required, he responded, "I would say the chances are average. We may have a new sponsor, but it is not at all necessary. We are focusing on finding a title sponsor with whom we can cooperate in the medium and long term. We do not need to resolve this issue immediately. This is simply not required." Unlike Rich Energy, the Italian recalls having a positive relationship with Uralkali before the parties were forced to part ways. That remark is true only of Mr. Story. We really got burned with that, and it was a lesson for us. But the situation with Uralkali is quite different. I never expected that something like this could happen and that events would develop as they did. From a financial standpoint of view, Uralkali is a very reliable and solid partner. While Nikita Mazepin targets a return to Formula One, good luck with that, there is another Russian driver looking to return to the sport, and this prospect is much more realistic. Daniil Kvyat has hinted at a comeback to the sport, saying that he has some options, but that the conflict in Ukraine has slowed negotiations. Kvyat, who has previously raced for Red Bull and sister team Toro Rosso, was in the Alpine hospitality area at the Italian Grand Prix, where he was a reserve last season, and met with team principal Otmar Zafnauer. When asked if a return was possible, the 28-year-old said to the media, "Of course, F1 as always has a special place in my heart, and who knows, hopefully one day we can talk about it again. I'm still young, as some people show you can come back after a little break and still do well. I think here in Europe, in the USA, I have green lights for most categories, so there was some period where everything was very tense. Of course, now it's less tense. But it unfortunately threw back a bit of the progress of negotiations. So now again, I am open to start negotiations and see what can come out of it for 2023. So luckily, there are some options. And yeah, I am open. There are no obstacles in that respect, if you ask me." After being left as a reserve for Alpine last year, the 28-year-old began attending NASCAR races and made his debut for Team Hesselberg last month in Indianapolis. Kvyat was hinted that his immediate future will be in NASCAR, but he has not ruled out a return to Formula One in the coming years. Of course, despite his flaws, Daniil Kvyat has held a much higher regard than his countryman Mazepin, and he truly has the talent to compete in F1. During his time at Red Bull, he even beat Daniel Ricciardo in the 2015 championship before being replaced by Max Verstappen midway through 2016. But what are your thoughts? Can Daniil Kvyat make a return to the sport? What about Mazepin? Do you think Günther Steiner overestimates the impact of not having a major sponsor? Let us know in the comments section down below. And if you enjoyed the video, consider liking and subscribing. It helps us out a lot.